I want you to do a quick mental audit for me. Think about the last time you bought a planner.
Oh, boy.
Or maybe you downloaded one of those, ultimate productivity apps, the ones with the really sleek interfaces and that satisfying ding when you check a box. You buy it, you set it all up, you color code everything, and you get this rush. You think, this is it. This is the thing that finally fixes me.
The classic new year, new me effect.
Yeah.
You've all been there. It feels like salvation in a spiral notebook.
Exactly. But then, 3 weeks pass. Maybe 3 days. You miss a Tuesday.
Uh-oh.
Then you miss Wednesday. And suddenly that planner sitting on your desk, it doesn't look like a helpful tool anymore. It looks like a judge. It feels like physical evidence of your failure.
Right.
Why does that happen? Why do tools that are designed to save us end up feeling like they're, punishing us?
That is the million-dollar question in the world of executive function. And, the answer the industry usually gives us is, well, you just weren't disciplined enough.
Oh, of course.
Or you need a better system.
Yeah.
It always puts the blame right back on the user.
Right. Try this hack instead. Or you just need more grit. It's your fault.
But today, we're doing a deep dive into a text that suggests the problem isn't your discipline and it's not the app. The problem is the entire metaphor we're using to understand our own brains.
Okay.
We are looking at a really fascinating piece by Jaime Hoerricks, PhD. It's titled Executive Functioning: Tools that Listen for Kairos, the Agriculture of the Whole First Mind.
And just based on that title, agriculture, I can tell we are leaving the world of silicon and spreadsheets.
We are leaving it entirely. The core insight here is that for decades, we've treated executive function like engineering. We treat the brain like a machine.
A machine that can be optimized.
Exactly. Machines need upgrades, they need maintenance, you can swap out parts, and if they don't work, well, they're labeled broken.
Right.
Hoerricks is arguing that we need to shift that entire paradigm from engineering to agriculture.
From fixing a machine to, tending a garden?
Precisely. It's a shift from regimes to seasons. And for anyone listening who has ever felt personally victimized by a to-do list, this offers a completely different way to look at why you get stuck.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds then, pun intended. Hoerricks starts with a pretty scathing critique of the current tools we use. He uses this phrase that really stuck with me. Tools that arrive with clipboards and uniforms.
It's a visceral image, isn't it? It immediately sets a specific tone.
It really does. It makes me think of like a health inspector or a traffic cop, someone who is there to catch you doing something wrong.
And that's the point. Traditional executive function strategies, lists, timers, rigid schedules, they often feel like authority figures. They feel like these external demands.
Yeah.
Hoerricks argues that when a tool feels like a regime, it triggers a defensive response in the brain. So instead of helping you flow, it puts you on trial.
But I have to play devil's advocate for just a second here. Don't we need clipboards sometimes? I mean, if I don't have a list, I don't get things done. Isn't structure necessary to function in the modern world? We can't just, vibe our way through tax season.
No, absolutely. That is a fair pushback. And structure is necessary, yes. But Hoerricks makes a really important distinction between structure that supports you and structure that just demands things from you.
Okay.
He talks about how most tools hold up what he calls mirrors polish to show deficits.
Mirrors polish to show deficits. Wow. That is a heavy phrase. Break that down for us.
Well, think about that blank page in your planner after you've missed a week.
I know it well.
What does it actually say to you? It doesn't say, hey, you were busy, it's okay, let's just pick up where we left off. It screams, look at all this empty space, look at what you didn't do.
Yeah.
The tool itself is designed in a way that just highlights the gap between what you intended to do and what you actually did.
So it's strictly focused on remediation. It assumes I'm broken from the start and it's here to fix the defect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hoerricks calls these programs of remediation and stories that end with correction. And if you're a specific type of thinker, what he calls a whole first or Gestalt thinker, this approach is actually paralyzing.
Right.
It's what he calls another demand dressed as support.
A demand dressed as support, that is a dangerous disguise. Because it looks like help, it's marketed as help, but it just feels like pressure. So let's talk about this whole first thinker. Is this like a specific diagnosis or is it a way of processing?
It's a processing style, and it's absolutely central to his whole argument. He uses the term Gestalt.
Okay.
Now, in psychology, Gestalt basically just means form or shape. The core idea is that the whole is different from, the sum of its parts. You see the face, not just an eye, a nose, and a mouth.
I've heard this described as like looking at a painting versus looking at the individual brushstrokes.
That's a great analogy. A parts-first thinker, which is who most planners are designed for,
Right.
they can look at a list of steps. 1, buy eggs, 2, mix flour, 3, heat pan. They can do the steps one by one,
Right.
and they trust that a cake will appear at the end. They don't need to see the finished cake to start step 1.
But a Gestalt thinker does.
The Gestalt thinker needs to see the cake first. Hoerricks writes, meaning must have a field to land upon before the parts can risk appearing.
Before the parts can risk appearing. Wow, that makes the detail sound almost dangerous.
For a whole first mind, they sort of are.
Yeah.
Without the context, without the coastline, as he puts it, individual tasks are just noise. They're overwhelming data points with nowhere to live. If you tell a Gestalt thinker, just do step 1, they freeze. Because step 1 has no meaning yet. They need that anchor of meaning.
This explains so much. I have friends who can just grind through a list, and I'm just sitting there completely paralyzed until I understand why we are doing it and what it's all supposed to look like when it's finished. I feel stupid, but really I'm just waiting for the context.
You're not stupid at all.
Wow.
You're waiting for the melody before you start playing the notes.
Oh.
And Hoerricks says you cannot reverse that order. If you force the parts before the meaning, you get resistance, you get procrastination. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain is literally trying to find a safe place to put the information.
So if the engineering model is just stacking bricks, the agricultural model is what? Preparing the soil.
Exactly that. And this is where the text gets really deep, almost philosophical, but it has these huge practical implications. He introduces this concept of dimensions.
Okay.
He argues that before we can even talk about productivity, which he calls the 5th dimension, we have to establish the 4th dimension.
Okay, you're going to have to walk me through this one. We've gone from planners to interdimensional travel. What is the 4th dimension in this context?
It's much more grounded than it sounds, I promise. The 4th dimension is the relational field. Hoerricks describes it as shared breath, table, and voice.
Shared breath. That implies connection.
Connection and safety. He's arguing that executive function, the actual ability to plan and initiate and do things, is biologically dependent on feeling safe and connected.
Whoa.
You cannot build the 5th dimension, productivity, if the 4th dimension, relationship, is unstable.
This reminds me of that concept, body doubling, where you just have someone sit next to you while you work.
Yep.
You don't even talk, but just having them there makes the work possible.
That is a perfect example of shared breath. You're borrowing their regulation, you're establishing a relational field. In the engineering view, another person is a distraction.
Right.
In the agricultural view, another person is the soil that makes the work grow.
So if I'm sitting in a sterile office, feeling judged by my boss, feeling isolated,
then your 4th dimension is compromised. You don't have shared breath, you have held breath.
yeah.
And because of that, you can't access the 5th dimension,
And the 5th dimension is?
which Hoerricks calls meaning time, or, to use the word from the title, kairos.
Kairos. I remember this vaguely from a philosophy class, but refresh my memory. How is he using it here?
So the ancient Greeks had 2 words for time. Chronos is clock time.
Right.
It's quantitative. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. It's linear. It's relentless. That is the regime.
That's a clipboard time.
Right. Kairos is qualitative. It's timing. It's the opportune moment. It's orchard time. When is an apple ready to be picked?
When it's ripe, not at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday just because the schedule says so.
Exactly. You can't schedule ripeness. Hoerricks is saying that the whole first mind operates on kairos. It operates on meaning time. You engage with a task when the meaning has finally landed, when the conditions are right.
Okay, poetically, I love that. It sounds beautiful. But practically speaking, I work a corporate job. If I tell my manager, sorry, the report isn't done because the moment wasn't ripe, I'm getting fired.
Yes.
How do we reconcile orchard time with a factory world?
That is the fundamental tension, isn't it? And Hoerricks isn't suggesting you just sit around waiting for divine inspiration while the world burns.
Yeah.
He's not saying ignore deadlines.
Okay, good.
But he is suggesting that forcing chronos on a kairos mind is incredibly inefficient. Just think about it. How many hours have you spent staring at a screen, forcing yourself to work because it's time to work, and you get absolutely nothing done?
Way too many. It's actually painful.
And then suddenly the meaning lands. Maybe the deadline is breathing down your neck, or you finally crack the concept, and you do 8 hours of work in 45 minutes.
The hyperfocus, that's when it just clicks.
That is kairos. That is the harvest. Hoerricks suggests we need tools that listen for that rightness rather than tools that try to beat us into submission of the clock. He has this amazing quote. Recursivity travels safely only when the yard knows our names.
Recursivity travels safely only when the yard knows our names.
Okay, that's a dense sentence. Let's unpack recursivity first. Recursivity is the engine of executive function. It's the ability to loop back on yourself, to look at what you just did, evaluate it, and then take the next step. It's all of problem solving. And it requires a lot of cognitive vulnerability because you might be wrong. You have to be willing to fail a little bit to move forward.
So you have to feel safe enough to make mistakes to be recursive.
Yes. And if the yard, your environment, doesn't know your name, if it feels impersonal or hostile or judgmental, your brain shuts down that recursive loop to protect itself. You go into survival mode, and you absolutely cannot problem solve in survival mode.
So this brings us right back to the environment. It really seems like the tool isn't the app. The tool is the space that we're in.
Ginga.
So if we're throwing out the clipboard, what are we replacing it with? The text lists some tools, but they sound more like poetry than productivity hacks. Co-pacing, borrowed wind, patient kettles.
These are the tools of the agricultural mind. Let's look at borrowed wind. Imagine a sailboat just becalmed in the water. It has structure, it has sails, but it can't move. It needs an external force.
So borrowed wind is relying on outside momentum.
Yes. Instead of shaming yourself for having no internal drive today, you hook your boat to something that's already moving. Maybe you join a study group. Maybe you listen to a podcast that gets you fired up.
Yeah.
You don't manufacture the wind, you catch it.
That is so much gentler than just push harder. It acknowledges that sometimes, the internal tank is just empty.
And then there's co-pacing. The regime says, here is the standard pace, keep up or get out. Co-pacing says, let's find a rhythm that works for both of us. It's attuned. It listens.
It sounds like a dance versus a march.
Perfect analogy. A march is engineering. A dance is agriculture. And then, this one is my favorite. Patient kettles in gentle light.
I laughed when I read this. A kettle is a productivity tool now.
Hoerricks lists them as prerequisites. Think about the sensory experience of a patient kettle. It's warm. It's ready. But it's not screaming at you. It's not a notification. It invites starting, as he says, the way a garden invites rain.
It's all about the invitation versus the demand.
Yes. He talks about designing rooms that signal safety. If your workspace has harsh fluorescent lights and a wobbly chair, your body is low-key stressed out. You're burning energy just tolerating the room. Gentle light signals to your amygdala. You are safe. You can focus now.
So interior design isn't frivolous. It's actually executive function support.
It is soil management. If the soil is toxic, the seeds won't grow. It's that simple. He contrasts hammers with cups. A hammer forces things. It drives. A cup receives. It holds. He says we need tools that are questions instead of commands.
The command is write the report. What's the question version of that?
What is ready to be written? Or what part of this story do you see clearly right now? It treats the thinker as the expert on their own mind. It assumes there's something in there worth harvesting, rather than assuming there's a deficit that needs filling.
It trusts the plant to grow on its own.
Exactly. He talks about schools shaped like spring and therapy paced by orchard time. It's this plea to align our expectations with biological reality. You cannot yell a tree into blossoming faster.
But we try. We try every single day. We yell at ourselves. We yell at our kids. We yell at our employees. Blossom now. It's 9 a.m.
We do. And Hoerricks says we need to stop standing over our lives with a clipboard and start kneeling in the dirt.
That's the image I want to end on.
Yeah.
Kneeling in the dirt. It feels so humble.
It is humble,
Yeah.
but it's also intimate. When you kneel in the dirt, you're close to the reality of the thing. You can feel the moisture in the soil. You can see the bugs.
Yeah.
You're not judging the garden from some tower. You are tending to it from the ground. It shifts you from being an inspector to being a cultivator.
So for the person listening right now who feels broken, who has that stack of unused planners and all the shame that comes with them, what is the takeaway here? Because we can't all quit our jobs and become farmers.
We can't. But the takeaway is this. You are not a broken machine. You might just be an agricultural thinker living in an engineering world. The failure isn't you. The failure is the tool. You were handed a hammer when what you really needed was a cup. You were given a schedule when what you needed was a season.
It's permission to stop fighting your own nature.
And permission to look for the meaning before you look for the steps. If you're stuck, don't make another list. Step back. Find the coastline. Find the melody. Connect with a human. fix the soil, the productivity will follow.
Meaning must have a field to land upon, that is going to stick with me. It's validation that needing the why isn't a weakness. It's a requirement for the how.
It's a beautiful thought. And Hoerricks really emphasizes that a whole first mind is ordinary and welcome.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be fixed. You just need to be tended.
So here's our challenge to you as you step away from this deep dive. Go look at your tools, your calendar, your app, your to-do list. Look them in the eye.
And ask yourself, is this a window or a mirror? And if it's a mirror, is it showing me what's possible? Is it showing me the whole picture? Or is it just polished to show me my deficits?
And if it's just showing you what you lack, maybe it's time to put down the clipboard.
And go find some gentle light.
And listen for the win. Thanks for deep diving with us.
The Orchard.